Hello?
Hello.
Hello.
How are you guys doing? Welcome, welcome.
Thank
Thanks for
you. Doing
Right.
good.
We're a little bit early, but we could probably get through the nitty-gritty stuff early on, the boring stuff, but the important stuff for the new people that might not know you. I would love to get you guys to just introduce yourself with your name, like what your job is in Theorycraft, maybe also how long you've been working on Theorycraft, and maybe some exciting things you have been working on with the game.
Cool.
Start.
Yeah, I'll go first. Hello, I'm Kyle. I'm Tehleach in game. I am a tech designer at Theorycraft. So I've been working on most recently kind of just like combat across the board. So a lot of the movement stuff I was pretty heavily involved in. The very most recent thing I worked on was the mini rework of Bishop. But I built Bishop. I built Zeph. I've worked on most of the hero kits. And before I was a designer at Theorycraft, I was a software engineer. So I've worked on a lot of the systems in the game too. So happy to kind of talk about mostly anything related to in-game design stuff or engineering stuff.
Awesome. Bell?
Yeah, my name is John or Bellisimoh, and I'm an executive producer on the project, kind of duo queuing it with SafeLocked, as many people already know, and been at Theorycraft for I want to say it's all 3 years. Um, but yeah, work across like all parts of the game really. So whether it be game systems, monetization, services, onboarding, UI, all over the place.
Interesting. Thank you. So, this is hopefully gonna be a pretty chill chat, kind of getting to know how you guys are thinking, what you're working on, some community questions, and getting into some nitty gritty stuff here and there. One of the things I wanted to ask, especially with Supervibe being a very different game combat wise, which is like on your side, Kyle. What was kind of the inspiration for the way of having movement and combat in this way, where everything is dynamic, everything you can do combined with each other, because not a lot of games has this kind of stuff, but I was wondering where did it begin, where this is something we want to develop, and ended up where we're having the memes movement, which everybody's in love with.
Yeah, I can try to do a quick little history lesson because it hasn't actually always been like this. Uh, how long, Tom? How long have you been playtesting? Were you here before Movement 3 or Combat 3.0
When
was
was that again?
introduced?
I have been there since I think like August or September last year. So
Okay, I think it was a year before that.
okay, yeah.
Maybe. Bellis, is that right? I don't know.
This is before that. Yeah.
But yeah, I think our original approach to combat was a lot closer to what felt more like MOBA combat. So it looked a lot more like movement and gameplay in League of Legends or Dota, where you're not moving super fast. The time to kill is pretty long. Your cooldowns are pretty long. Not everyone had a dash. Ranges were pretty tight, and like, yeah, basically like everything felt more contained, and it was kind of easier to wrap your head around it. But uh, I think at a certain point we kind of just looked at the game that we were playtesting and just took a hard look and had to be like really critical, and we were like, this maybe isn't fun for the game we're trying to build. Like there's something missing here. It's not hitting what we want to hit. And I think that was a result of what the game we were building was turning into, which was kind of like this sandbox battle royale game. And I think the crux of it was that anyone needs to be able to fight anyone else in a BR setting. Otherwise, you'll get into situations where you're just like, this thing has happened in this fight, and now the fight, we call it a slowly crashing plane. Like the fight becomes something that is like already determined. So you're just like, okay, there's a kingpin running at me. I don't have any dashes. I don't have people around. I'm losing. It's over. Like you're playing the healer and you just say like, okay, I should probably just jump off a cliff. Uh, and I think like from taking that look, we kind of realized like we need to build dueling as something that is kind of like ubiquitous and possible across the roster, and it needs to be fun and exciting. Like the game just has to be fun and like has to make your like blood pump and like make you excited and make you want to yell. And for that, like I think the obvious answer was let's speed things up, let's make the game faster, let's make it less deterministic and like try to create opportunities for resets and swings and for combat to just sort of like happen and be like surprising and exciting. And the very first version, I remember our game director like showing it to some of us and being like, I remember looking at it and being like, how am I going to know where anyone is on screen or if anyone can ever dash? And I think like over time it's kind of morphed into like this mindset of like, if everyone has these movement abilities available, then you can kind of always assume that a dash is about to come up on any character, and it evens the playing field and it gives people more room to like make kind of really sharp mechanical outplays, swing fights, have fights like look like one team's going to win, different team pulls ahead, different team pulls back ahead, and it just I like listened to a clip of my team winning before that and my team winning after that, and it's night and day. Like when I would win in the old combat model, we were just like, all right, cool, let's play again. And when I'm winning now, I'm like screaming at the top of my lungs, going crazy.
Oh, it's very interesting because the thing with movement, and everybody kind of pitches a little bit on it, especially with, for example, Void being the only one who doesn't have a dash. I was wondering, what is your guys' approach on hunters coming in later who can be kind of similar to Void, but still feel satisfying without needing like a dash? So you don't always feel like every hunter that comes out needs to have a dash. Because I'm in love with Void. I like his kit. So how do you make sure that you're able to have more characters like Void?
Yeah, I think a lot of what we're doing with this initial roster is like I talk about it as like we're establishing bookends. So we're saying like, here's like as far out as like we kind of generally want our combat to go. And I think Void is an example of like a character that, yeah, he doesn't have a dash, and his existence is kind of us proving that that space can work in our game. And since he doesn't have a dash, he can do stuff that's kind of like a lot more wild and crazy and would probably be unacceptable if he did have a dash. So I think like by his existence in the roster and we like people love Void and Void mains, like if you play Void a lot, you are a Void player and you love that. And I think we want to add more in that space, and because he works in our combat model, we're pretty confident that we can. I think it will be more common that every character will have some form of dash, but I think that like there is space for more strategic controllers like Void, caster characters like Void. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, looking forward to see more on the hunter side. I think it's very interesting to, get a bigger roster. Some people talk about, the strength of certain characters not having necessarily call it a counter in other hero kits or hunter kits, but looking forward to see like potentially clashes that can make more versatility. But one thing I wanted to touch on for you, Bell, you've been there for a while, as I said, like it's been many years, and I've been looking forward to ask like, how has your days progressed as working days when you started on very early on compared to now where NDA is broken and there's probably a lot of other things to think about and work on? How has your workload, or like the things you've been working on specifically shifted, and what is your goal in this coming year kind of?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's interesting. I was just thinking about this the other day in that, like now that people are seeing the game, there's kind of like this deep exhale, like, oh, like, okay, like we got past this moment and, people seem happy, which is great. But, also it's me and SafeLock talk about this a lot. There's like a deep sigh on the other side of it because we understand how much more work there is to do. Like there's still a lot more work to do before we can ship the game. And also like, it's great that people are excited, but I think it also, to us, it means that we need to work even harder to kind of meet the expectations that are kind of going up with every minute that passes. So in terms of like practically what that means in terms of like what we focus on, I think in the first a couple of years, things were very experimental. Like Kyle talked a little bit about it, and I think even in the last 6 months, we've even done some stuff that was like, hey, this is like a crazy big swing. Let's try that. And I think on average as a studio, that is the way we roll, and we do want to change things up more often than not. But I think in the months leading up to launch and for the remainder of this year, like I think people can expect us to put a lot of effort into polishing the game, making performance way better, making sure that we work on a wide range of machines, making sure that when it comes to your connection to the game and the smoothness of play, like all of that needs to be really fucking good to be a valid competitive game.
Awesome. And on that, since you're mentioning the polishing and everything that needs to be done, of course, coming closer to launch, a lot of people, like maybe not compared to how many people are coming in now, but have been able to, experience the Freaky Week tests that have been earlier, where things are crazy. You guys are just putting out all your thoughts and energy and things you want to test out. Do you think that there will be any other iterations of Freaky Week test up towards launch, so specific things you want to try out? Or is everything like more calming down, looking at like, the cosmetic side, the server side, and fluidity overall?
I mean, yeah, we definitely need to ship the game. But we do talk about our next Freaky Week and, when that might make sense. And I think it's something that I really like about our studio culture is, I've worked at other places where when you go through that experimentation loop, or you have 20% time at Google, or there are other examples like this. And oftentimes when people work on those projects, they never really see the light of day. And I really like that we are willing to kind of like put that stuff out there and see if players like it. And even if we don't have the intention of shipping it anytime soon, like we think that signal from players is way more important than our own internal signal. So I think our players can and should expect to do stuff like that again in the future. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. So on that note, Kyle, I would like to hear from you. What is your favorite thing that has been shipped? It doesn't necessarily mean that you have worked on it, but maybe a freaky idea or some big changes that happened that you were like, okay, this is really cool, and I'm like hyped that this is actually something we didn't think about before, but now it's finally here, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think my favorite Freaky Week project ever is the train. The train was like, I think if we didn't build that in Freaky Week, I don't know that it ever would have made it into the game, because I remember someone asking me like so I worked on the train with JMO, and he and I kind of built it together. And I remember someone was like, why are you putting a train in the game? And like my answer was like, I don't know, train. Like, think it sounds awesome. We were just gonna put it in and see what happens. And like I think that just building stuff that you have this intuitive sense of like, this will make the game better. Like if that's all you ever do, you're a chicken with your head cut off, and like you'll end up with something that's like complete gobbledygook. But like spending time to do it is awesome. And taking swings like that when they like are really important to you and you have conviction they'll work. And I think the train was that. And I think like the thing that the train provided that we didn't have before was like, it put a space on the map that was not static. Like our map doesn't change game to game. Like the circle changes, the like objectives change, the things that are on the map, the players, that changes. But like a certain space in the map, it always feels like that same space in the map. And when the train went in, immediately it was like, I look at a spot on the train tracks, and that spot is like exciting, and it makes me like it feels like visceral and different, where it's like, I can stand there now, but I can't stand there all the time because I'm just gonna get blasted by this thing. And yeah, it was like a blast when it went in, and we kind of were like, oh crap, all right, now we have to like keep this in the game and figure out how to build it for realsies. But it was really fun. A fun trivia fact about the train was when it was first introduced, it was a Freaky Week done during like the holiday season. So we made it. We made we had boxes on the train, and they were gifts, and we had like they showed up as little like randomized presents that you would open. And the train was like playing like a holiday like Jingle Bells kind of song. So you just like, at one point I like opened it up and I got sick of the holiday song because I was like listening to it for like 3 hours in one morning when I was trying to fix bugs with the train. But you'd like hear it off in the distance and you'd know the train's coming. It was pretty cool.
Oh, so it's actually like a lot of fun. Can we then expect like Christmas maps in the future, like thinking all the way to launch? Okay, like Christmas train, Halloween trains, and etc.
Um, customizing the map or having things that are seasonal is something that we definitely talk about. I think it's something that we're really excited to do. Many of us worked on competitive games that were a little bit more rigid in terms of changing the map or the tools, and so we're just really excited to be able to have that type of content in the game. In terms of like concrete plans, we're really just focused on like ship the game and get the game out. We are planning some content post launch, and we'll have to see what comes out after.
But yeah,
I would
so
want
yeah, go for it.
to add to that. I think like a thing that is cool is technology has come quite a long ways, and I remember like we have experimented with changing the map to like look snowy in the winter, and it isn't as difficult as like it would have been 20 years ago when you would have to like create an entirely new map. Like we are able to like change things on the tech side with like art resources, and like now grass looks like snow and that kind of thing. There are possibilities. So I think like I would be excited to try to do stuff like that. We don't have like clear concrete plans, but it's not as hard as it used to be, which is cool.
Awesome. But yeah, Bell, your memory, the thing that got shipped. What is it?
I mean, my favorite Freaky Week change was probably gliders. Um, and I think I don't know if everyone knows the story, but like basically, it had gotten thrown in Freaky Week, and it was highly controversial internally. Like there was a group of people who were like, I can't believe we put this in the game. Like the abyss is something that up until that point we saw as like positioning really matters, like where you are and like how you move around the space, and like knowing where abyss is, like that's really important. And suddenly with gliders in, it became very trivial to traverse. And then also with jump pads, you could launch yourself up in the air, and we didn't have the concept of spiking, and so it was very controversial. And oftentimes on the team, we'll develop something and then we'll test it internally, and usually we'll have some sort of strong signal, either positive or negative, and we'll be like, oh cool, everyone hates this, let's get it out. Or sometimes we're like, oh, everyone likes this, cool, let's keep it in. But on the rare occasion where we are truly torn as a development team, we often say like, okay, put it in, let the players play it, let's see, let it ride. And when we did, I think we started with a veteran playtest for that one, and then a larger one, and it was night and day. Like everyone almost unanimously said this makes the game so much better. And then I know the design team was like, well, fuck, we need to like solve all these problems. But yeah, I think in hindsight, I'm really glad that we did it, and feel like we arrived on something that really makes Supervive unique, and makes combat really unique.
Yeah, the flying part I think is like crucial for everything, which makes it so cool. I think it's very interesting also, might be the first thing you potentially start hating if the first thing that happens is that you do get spiked, with the flying and going around, but also maybe the most satisfying thing you can ever do in a game when you do spike somebody else and you're finally getting into it. But I want to take a step also further, maybe potentially, like depending on what you guys can answer, of course. But I gotta try my chances with a game like this, free to play, and being able to keep changes enough for people to be always interested in the game. As you guys said, like you want to have it possible to be able to play 10,000 hours plus being able to just be creative, have fun. Do you guys have plans in form of how do you do seasons in the game compared to the ranked system of the reset, but also in the way more thematics of updating on the map, potentially environments? Some people have talked about your potential of switching out areas in the fact of everything is islands and etc. Is there anything you can like teaser out there, with like the concept of what can we expect on launch in form of the longevity of things happening in updates?
Yeah, I think this is a really great question, because I think if you're like just getting here and you're playing the game and you're liking it, you're probably wondering like, what am I in store for, and do I want to invest the time? And well, I can't say like specifically, hey, we're doing X, Y, and Z. I can speak to, I think, our philosophy at current, which I think is subject to change depending on what players like and don't like. But currently, our philosophy is like, yeah, we do want to deliver new content through a lot of the different kind of canvases that you mentioned, whether it be like map, powers, bosses, new hunters. I think one thing that we think about though is, we need to be careful. We don't want to keep adding to the game to where it gets to a point where there's like this mountain of learning. Some might argue, a very justified way, that there's already a mountain of learning in Supervive. And so we have to be really cognizant about how we add. That said, I do think like adding new content, taking some things away, rotating things in and out, that's probably an approach that we're going to try. I think another thing is that we do experiment with a lot of different things. And so I think you'll see us experiment with new things, whether they be mechanics or powers, or hunters. And then in terms of like, specifically what's coming out when, can't really speak to that, but can say that we are building content for post-launch, and we are trying to make sure that, we're competitive gamers ourselves, and it's really disappointing when a competitive game comes out and then nothing happens, like they don't change anything or they don't add any content, and you're like, what the fuck? And so we want to make sure that we meet that expectation. So we're trying to line up a bunch of stuff post-launch. That way people who do show up and do commit feel like, all right, awesome. Like I'm eating good. Like Supervive's got me.
Awesome. Okay, not too much we can get there. It's understandable, the philosophy is important. But what I do want to touch on is, I would love to hear, and foremost, since we can't, get specifics there, I want to get specifics from back, the ideas that you have had that you thought, like, this was amazing, like, this is going to do very well, but didn't end up happening at all. Do you guys have, like, moments where you're very convinced, or maybe somebody had a very cool idea that you really enjoyed, but didn't end up happening?
Thinking.
Understandable. Putting you guys on the spot specifically with it.
I'll throw one out. Somebody mentioned it in chat just a minute ago, but basically there was a short period of time where we did not have gliders until you reached level 4. Internally, I personally really liked it because it created this very different texture, or the level 1 fights or pre-level 4 fights were very different until you got your gliders, and it made drop very committal in a way where it's not right now, because you can get away so easily. And that said, a bunch of people fucking hated it. A lot of people thought it was really confusing that you don't have a glider and then you do, and maybe there's some way that idea comes back via storm shift or something like that. But yeah, I liked it, but I understand why we don't have it today.
Kyle, did you find something?
Yeah, I think like the most recent one that comes to mind for me was the experiment we did earlier this year with powers. We basically put stats on powers and made them highly upgradable. And I think that was another one where, like, myself and a good amount of the dev team, we were like, the item system has been kind of straightforward and like has felt like a huge opportunity to improve for a while. And powers have felt like this sort of like secret, insane depth in the game that like players kind of sort of like end up having to like start engaging with really late in their journey of learning the game. And like the idea of like kind of collapsing them into a system that was very important and front of mind and achieved both things, made players care about powers early so that they could experience that, and also made the item system have more like meat to it. That felt like a huge win. And then, we played it and people talked about, there's so much reading now, these powers are completely warping combat and completely changing my expectations of like my mental model of how combat's going. There are a bunch of downsides that like in retrospect were clear, and by playing it like and hearing players talk about these downsides, they're obviously correct. But it still is a system that I'm kind of like, I feel like there must be something in there that is like could have been it, but we couldn't find it.
I think it's very interesting, specifically on the items and powers. A lot of people that I've spoken with myself have talked about the difference between how many powers there are and how many items there are, and like how you use them. One frustrating thing can often be that you feel like maybe you have a lot of hunters on the same team that want the same kind of items, and that you kind of stagger your stats build up in that way. Have you guys thought of maybe making it more complex or changing items in form of being more versatile for everybody to use, so it doesn't feel frustrating to compete for items? Or you're like more on the state of making powers in a better position where items doesn't feel necessary, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, Kyle touched on it, but I'll expand on it. Like, I think we know that the equipment system needs love, whether that be in the form of adding more content to it or doing some iteration on that system. And that's probably one of the things that, unless the playtest that we're doing right now and the playtest that we're doing leading up to launch, unless there's something else that comes up where we're like, oh my god, we need to dogpile on this particular part of the game and address that. Probably one of the things that's at the top of the list for us, at least on the game system side. So I think there are a bunch of different options. Some of the things you mentioned are things that we're considering, but can't really commit.
Awesome, I appreciate that. Awesome. I wanna get a little bit spicy, Maybe you guys saw it on the last interview, but it's always fun to hear about the other side. Doesn't need to be super vibe, but getting to know you guys more, and that is like the hot take. And I would love to hear what your guys' hot take on any video game is. If it is multiplayer, if it's like MMORPG, single player, multiplayer, like whatever game it is, do you guys have a hot take?
Kyle, I think I know one that you might. Do you want to talk about Crab Champions?
I mean, this isn't a spicy take. This is just it's a good game. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard of the game Crab Champions, but I've showed that game to many people. I just like crab themed things. I was playing the Crab Dark Souls game recently, and it's called Another Crab's Treasure, and like it's just delightful. Like underwater, like island themed music, the whole vibe. It's just there. But Crab Game is like this fast paced 4-player co-op crab third-person shooter roguelike game where you're just like shooting other crabs and floating skulls and other deep sea creatures and upgrading a weapon. And it's like a really tiny game that was made by the guy that made the Crab Rave music video. But it's really fun, and you just like kind of hang out with your friends and play it and listen to crab music, and it's a good vibe. And also, I think it's a clear example of like you can achieve crazy, incredible feeling movement just kind of with out of the box Unreal systems. I'm pretty sure that's an Unreal game, and the movement in that game feels so amazing. Like even when it was first released, it felt great, and like the networking of it was horrible. Like if you died and were spectating someone, your camera would be like jumping all over the place because they weren't networking the movement really well. But when you're playing it, like Unreal's built-in prediction is just great. I was gonna say a spicy take, and maybe this is not spicy to broad public, but spicy within our team is League of Legends is a better game than Dota, and it's like not really debatable at all. Like it's, I think the numbers speak to it, but also just like watching it, playing it, it's a better game, and yeah, that one I'll hold on to, and I'll argue people.
That is not really a hot take. We all know that's true.
I have something that's a hot take, maybe not on a specific game, and also it may not be spicy for you, Tom, but I think EU is better than NA in almost every professional esports scene that I've followed closely as a fan. Like, uh, and and yeah, I've followed the league for like a fucking decade. Love a bunch of different teams that I had high hopes for, but it just never happened. And so I think EU greater than NA, sadly.
No, sadly. You were doing so great. I was loving everything you said, until the last little sadly. Nah. That was great. But but yeah, and another question I have on that actually. So I think it's funny you mentioned the crab thing. I also heard about that and seen it a lot. So if you were to design your own hunter, would you then just make a crab hunter?
Ooh, a crab hunter would be pretty cool. An underwater, some kind of underwater aquatic hunter. I don't have one in my brain, but
He goes
maybe
he goes like twice as fast if he like walks in water.
Okay, yep, we're building it now. Yes. Claw attacks. He can grab. He has like a Skarner, like grab with your claws and scuttle away with them. Yeah.
Now we're cooking. That's what I love.
I like it. Yeah.
And when that hunters are released, you like make a small little beach section with like small crabs.
Yeah. No spoilers. That sounds great. Yeah.
No spoilers. Also, I was thinking going over more since we got some spicy community questions. Like people want answers. One of the questions I've gotten asking to ask you guys. Why didn't you guys nerf Jewel after last patch?
Didn't we? Did we not?
She was not in the patch notes at least, unless you guys did something hidden that nobody knows about.
I don't remember. We do look at balance data, and I believe that we did not see Jewel as an outlier in terms of raw power. But when we talk about balance a lot, we talk about like, for one thing, our up until this playtest, and probably including this playtest to an extent, like our population size is so small that it's hard to like really know anything based on the balance data that we're seeing. And then also like data is important, but perception is also important. And like even if a character is like straight up down the middle, like balanced or even underbalanced, but if players are like, this is really horrible to play against, like that's always like those things go hand in hand, and those are what kind of like drive us to like balance the game and make changes. So heard about Jewel. We've heard there's been spicy threads internally too. But I think like from the data we have, she's not balanced out of line, but that doesn't mean that she doesn't feel oppressive to play against.
That's fair. Another question got also on the hunter section. Have you guys ever had or potentially have ideas for a different hunter section? Like, for example, right now we have DPS, protector, and controller. Have you ever thought of making hunters outside of those categories, or maybe like switching them out into other kinds of niches?
I think we talked about those categories recently as like a hunter design crew, and like the way that we talk about and think about those categories is like those categories are to help players when they're trying to figure out what to play, to have some frame of reference. It's like I'm coming in for the first time, and like if I just saw a lineup of 14 and was just like, what do I pick? I would feel overwhelmed, So like having a grouping like that, like even though it is broad, like it at least allows you to say like, okay, I'm where are the healers at? The healers are in this bucket. Like, let me try one, and if I don't like it, I'll try another from that bucket. And it gives you sort of like some direction when otherwise you would have like analysis paralysis. So I think we're not like super keen on expanding it, because keeping it simple provides that value the most. We did add something in the most recent patch, or maybe a patch before, I think, that is like kind of like shorter like descriptions of the characters, like a few like 3-word descriptions, like sniper is like acrobatic battle sniper or something. And I think those we feel better about. But I guess like to answer your question, it's like I think we just don't we don't really think that they're that definitive of boxes, so I don't think we would find too much value in adding more. We kind of think like each character kind of just stands in the roster on its own, and we're more interested in like creating characters that are different than all the other characters that exist, rather than like coming up with a new categorization and filling that one out, I guess.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Another question that I got was specifically to Bell. What is your favorite Kingpin skin?
I my favorite Kingpin skin. No one has seen it yet. If we complete all the work that we're supposed to complete, you will see it in the next patch.
Okay. Almost got you. People want the answers, you know. Awesome. Another question. Some of the community have started to open up, applications for tournaments happening in July, trying out and testing out formats. Can we expect devs to sign up with dev teams for the tournaments?
Is it going to be open to devs? Yeah.
I imagine so. So since they asked, I imagine they need to be open for devs for sure.
I mean, yeah, I'm generally a part of the show match dev squad, and like if we are available, I'm in. That sounds fun.
On that note, like, I do think that we as a team believe that it's like our participation in things like show match. Originally it was out of necessity because nobody else was playing the game yet. But now it's I think our attitude towards it is like we think it's important not just to show people like, hey, we play the game too, but also because it's by experiencing things like show matches where we see the problems either in running them or organizing them or how they play differently from a normal match. So I think you can expect us to be involved if people are interested in us being involved.
We are quickly getting shit on more and more, though. I would say it's it used to be there was a while where it felt like we were never gonna lose a show match, and now there's been a while where it's felt like we'll never win. I feel like we got a win and it felt like a fluke in the past 6 months, and it's yeah, we're boosted now.
Well, it'll be like a big celebration. You guys get the dub in the tournament, and then there's be a party. Everybody meets up again. Your next meetup will just be like a tournament party celebration. Another question that I got was about community and growth and being open-ended. Since you guys have always talked about being open and talking with the community, so I got a question: what are your guys' plans on being able to give information about your thoughts and changes coming out? More so when the player base becomes bigger and bigger, because it's very close and it's very nice now that we get to hang out with a lot of you guys on Discord and talk with you. But hopefully as the player base gets bigger and bigger, have you guys thought about specific things to be able to keep close to the community in that sense?
Yeah, I think we definitely believe that communicating our intent to players whenever we're either adding things to the game or changing the game or thinking about addressing things in the game, we think that's really important. I think you could expect us to continue to try to exceed expectations on that. I know that Puff, he's often the one who's putting together all the patch notes, and there's often a lot of changes. So I really appreciate the work that he does wrangling all that. But I do think as we get closer to launch, I think we'll have patch cycles. We'll probably sit down and think about like, okay, hey, what are the main things that we want to communicate? And we do some of that now through things like the fireside chat with SafeLocked, and I think you can expect to continue all those things. And we think it's really important because we don't want to prescribe the game that we're building for players. Like we want to work with players on it, and the best way to engage that dialogue is to make sure you put content out there for them to respond to and digest and think about. And yeah,
I think like to add on to that, I think we we will continue to engage with the community the way that we currently do, which is play games, be in the Discord, talk to players on Discord, both in the text channels and in voice. Just be in there. But, you know, as our player base scales, if we're lucky enough that it does scale and gets bigger, our voices become smaller relatively. So, like, I think we'll just have to come up with ways to share it out more. And I think like doing stuff like this is cool, and like figuring out how to find other ways to talk to players and do Q&As and just have a dialogue. But I think like the thing that will not happen is we're not going to just like go into the interior of the company and never talk, or be like, we're all, you know, here's Theorycraft's official stance on stuff. I think we'll always be like able to speak to our expertise and do our best to speak to what we're doing as a team. But like as a dev team and as the devs that want to do that.
There's one thing I'd add on top of this, which is, you know, I was fortunate to be working on League in its earlier years, and when the community was a lot smaller, and the dev to player ratio was meaningfully different than it became years later and is today. But when I reflect on that period of time now, a lot of the like connections and relationships that I had built in those early days ended up lasting me for years to come across, you know, League's lifetime. I bring that up because, like, yeah, I have the same kind of hope and aspiration now, or when I am, you know, talking to either you, Tom, or other people like Sonoy, Teldo, Zach Mazer, Lemur, you know, whenever I'm talking with some of these players directly about the game, you know, I do have that hope that this is kind of like the cultural foundation of our community, and I hope that we can, you know, scale it the best that we can, assuming that we're successful.
Awesome, that sounds great. I also got another question in form of not necessarily community, but they're asking about, you know, the form of collaboration. The example was given. League is a game where you don't see much collaborations with other, you know, studios or themes or television, whatever it is. But Fortnite, you know, on the other spectrum, like having insane collaborations. What's your guys' stance on, you know, potentially doing those kind of stuff? Are you more on so doing a lot of your own stuff, or are you open to the idea of setting up things with other themes, you know?
Yeah, we've talked about this a bunch internally, though we view it as like a if we're successful, we should think about it. So we admittedly don't think that much about it. We're focused on like, let's make sure we survive and are a good game. But like when we do talk about it, we are open to that, and I think that especially when it creates either moments or content or experiences for players that we think is really unique or awesome, or is experientially something outsized relative to what we can deliver on our own, I think we're totally open to that. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. We see some good memes already, you know, the collaborations with people. And on the topic of memes and collaborations, I want to hear your guys' favorite Supervive memes, or, you know, Loki memes from back in the days. What has been the best that you guys still maybe reference back in your own meetings, or still use in the daily dose, or just something that gives you a good laugh?
It's already in the chat. I mean, Hogs Can't Lose was something where, honestly, the first time I got exposed to it, I was like, what are people talking about? But then once I, like, you know, downloaded the lore, I was like, holy shit, I am in. This is amazing.
I think mine is probably the like memescape of Bebo. Like Bebo's taken over. The Bebo song, all of the stickers and emotes in the Discord. Just this like little enigma of evil that looks like a cute penguin is it's incredible. I don't know if he'll ever. The Bebo memes will never die. Yeah.
That's great, because I also got a question from last chat, since we talked with JMO and we got to talk about Bebo, and somebody asked, Are you guys afraid that the public perception of certain hunters that are not really released anymore is gonna perform how they perceive it when it is released? Now that a lot of people have perceived how they think about Bibo, what Bibo is, and like what we kind of saw from it, does that change how you guys work on a hunter, or is it more like, okay, it will stay a meme and it will become what it becomes?
I think it's like one cannot exist without the other. Like, I think Bibo was created to be this like funny little madman, and then that is what players perceived, which is great. And then they built on it, and then that added fuel to JMO's fire. And JMO is now, he's got even more ideas brimming about what a little madman Bibo could be. I think the important thing is like the Bibo that players engaged with was a Freaky Week project, and like that means it was whatever art JMO could build and whatever crazy abilities he could slap together in a week. And a real hunter takes a lot longer and goes through a lot more production. So I think like if when Bibo ever does or does not exist or not exist, it's not going to look exactly the same. But I think like the spirit of the thing will live on and hopefully become more powerful.
Awesome. Another question we got in form of, the possible changes. We were able to see 20v20 mode earlier. That was like a funny game mode. Do you guys, what's your guys' stance on game modes on the side? Like right now we have the deathmatch mode and we have the battle royale and duos. Also people have mentioned that, trio probably is going to be like a staple thing. But on the other side, funny game modes, have you guys been testing a lot of different stuff, and is this something we can expect more tested of before launch, or more so no, this is something we'll come back to later after launch?
Yeah, I think this is something you can definitely expect to see us a space that we'll play in, to our earlier conversation about content post-launch and how do we keep the game fresh and exciting. I think this is definitely one of those ways. And also, I think to touch on the 20v20 specifically for those that experienced it, shout out to Matt Taylor, 3D artist on our team, who really pushed that forward during Freaky Week. And I think something that we were all surprised by internally is, we had heard like, oh, Matt's working on 20v20, and then you're like, oh shit, okay, by himself, okay, is that sure? Like, I'll try it. And then I think what we were surprised by is like it actually worked really well out of the box. Obviously, there's like a lot of issues, there's a lot of things to fix or make better, but it was really exciting to see how our combat scaled and was still really fun and still was functional. And so I think because of that, you can't expect us to play in that space a little bit more. And whether it be 20v20 or something else, can't commit specifically, but we definitely are excited for different game modes. We think our combat sandbox is just really fun in general, and we want to play in this space a lot more.
I think just in terms of like why aren't we doing them now, or like when are we going to do them, I think just to say it, like it would be irresponsible for us to be like just slamming modes like that right now when we're trying to like ship the thing that we think is the best version of the game. So like in my mind it's like we will, like I would be pumped to go into that space. I've worked on like alternate modes for other games, and that's like one of the most fun spaces to be in, because you can be like, what's cool about this and how could we put the pieces together in a different way. But I think it's like the only way that it would be responsible to work on is like once we're in a good spot and our game is doing well, then like can we build it as something that is like a future seasonal release, or like try different things out, or a future Freaky Week mode or something. But yeah, like if we just went and built it now, like our team is not large, and like other games much bigger than us have a team that's probably bigger than our team building their rotating game modes, you know.
So on that note, when is your guys' next meetup? You know, it's always fun to see, like, you are all working from home. It's like you don't have an office. It's not kind of that environment. When is the next time you guys are meeting up and doing stuff, you know, vibing around, as people are starting saying?
Yeah, we try to meet up as often as possible. Realistically, you know, I don't know if we're going to be able to get one in before we launch the game later this year, so it'll probably have to be sometime after that, realistically. And yeah, even when we launch the game, you know, that's not finish line, right? So like we talked about earlier, like I think players probably expect more from us once the game's out, so we'll have to see. But yeah.
Lastly, before, I would love to hear some closing thoughts from you guys. Are you guys like sleeping this week, or like how is this week for you guys? Are you like up 24 hours just working, stressing, maybe playing some games here and there, or are you able to relax on the side?
All right, I'll go first because I have a more cheeseburger weird answer, which is I was in Aruba like 36 hours ago. Like I like was not even here this week, which is cool. Like I had this like vacation plan, so I was if I tweeted a picture of myself drinking a margarita at the beach watching Lemur's stream, telling Lemur that he's got a win coming. So that was really hard to not be here during this week because it was a huge week. But I'm just getting back in. Today's my first day playing this playtest, so I'm ready to tear it up. And it's been it's been pretty crazy to see everything happening from afar.
Yeah, on my side, for those that know me well, like I'm a little bit of like a health nut, and I care a lot. I care a lot about sleep, and normally get really good sleep, but for the last like, you know, week and a half, it has not been that great, but it has been worth it. So no, not sleeping that much right now, but it is all gravy.
Well, we're sending all the love to you guys. Hopefully, won't be too stressful. You know, so I can see you're losing already a little bit too much hair on the top. So hopefully, that's not a stress, but more so a choice for your own sake. But yeah, before we
I'm trying to steal Jotun's
Yeah.
look, you know.
That's true. That's true. But yeah, I want to some closing thoughts before we end up today. What are you guys hoping that people feel, you know, and enjoy this coming week? This is last day of ranked, and then it's gonna be some more days before the last day on Thursday. But it's gonna be a long, cool week. We're still not even halfway. But what do you want to say to the people?
I can go.
Yeah.
Like thank you. Thanks for Tom. Thank you for having us and talking to us. I don't think I'd ever talked to you before. I've seen you in game a bunch, but it's been cool chatting, and we should queue up together sometime.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, I think just thanks for trying our game and giving us a shot. We're building something that I think we all have really strong convictions in, and we think that there's gold here, and seeing people care about it and talk about it and give it a try and get mad about it and get mad about balance and changes and stuff, like that's awesome. Keep telling us what sucks and what's good in surveys, in Discord, in voice, in game, whatever. All feedback is good feedback. We want to hear it. Help us make the game better because we want the game to be good. This is like the coolest project I've ever worked on, and I feel lucky every day I get to work on it. So get out there and frag. Show me some clips. Me and Bellis will look at some clips later, maybe.
The only thing I'd add is yeah, like if you're looking for a way to help us, just play the game and give us feedback. You know, we look at how many people come up and show up every day and play, and how long you play. So if you love the game, just keep playing and tell us that you like it, or tell us why you don't like it and what would change your mind. And then also towards the end of the playtest, you know, we might have some surprises coming up. So make sure you tune in towards the end of the playtest.
Surprises? Okay. Leaving us on this edge. That's spicy. I appreciate you guys taking the time for being here on the interview. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope I also see you guys in game. But sadly, you're not allowed to win them. But if we don't meet, then you can win some game, have some fun.
Thank you. Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, see you out there, man.
Awesome. Have a lovely rest of your day. I'll see you guys.
Thanks.
See ya.
Bye.